inspired by, as you know, last week we lost a legend. Mr. Wonderful. Well, yeah, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff passed away.
Easy for you to say.
And there's a lot of debates on the internet about what his feuds he was in and his legacy, all that. And obviously, when you think of his biggest feuds of his career, obviously Hulk Hogan comes to mind. Which sparked the debate now about Hulk Hogan feuds all the time, and where he ranks among Hogan feuds. Because the Hogan Orndorff feud was to me incredible. It's actually quite influential when you think about it in hindsight. So this triggered now because I wanted to do this actually. And I'm going to do this on my solo pod too. But it triggered me tonight discussing now what are Hulk Hogan's top 5 feuds in order. So I don't know who wants to go first.
Well, you should go first because we're gonna shit all over your answers. Correct. Like that's just pretty much our plan.
Pretty fucking wrong.
I literally promised 3 count last week on their show that I was gonna shit on your answers, so it's okay.
Just let it go.
You're gonna be totally wrong. Number 1, okay?
That's what you say.
Yeah, right. Go for it.
So let me throw out some honorable mentions real quick. My honorable mentions, I have 3. 1, 2. Yeah, I have 3 of them actually.
Okay.
Big Boss Man, the '88 feud when Boss Man came to the company.
Okay.
Earthquake, because I was one of those assholes writing letters to Hogan, get well soon, 1990.
Yeah.
It was. And Sergeant Slaughter, which of course is the Iraqi bad taste, obviously in hindsight, but God, it was a big deal at the time.
Yeah, as a kid, I loved it. I'm not gonna lie, I love that feud.
The kid was stupid too, so we don't know any better.
Right.
we look at that, it's like, ugh, don't touch that one. Vince would, but anyway.
It's the kind of thing you can never get away with today.
No. So I'm gonna go 5-1 because I'm cool at that. But 5, biggest Hogan feud in my opinion.
Keep telling yourself that, bud.
Okay, Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper from 85 through 86. Roddy Piper at one point at that time was the biggest heel in wrestling.
But okay, to be fair, and I know you weren't the biggest WCW fan and stuff like that, but right. Piper and Hogan feuded even into their WCW in the late 90s. Like, it's never – they are one of those feuds where it never really ended. You know what I mean? Like, they always were on opposite – hell, Hogan came into WWE again back in around WrestleMania 19 or so when he was fighting Vince McMahon, and you had Piper show up and like, screw him over, or at least attempt to, and side with Vince. So like that was one of those feuds that literally was a never-ending feud. I loved it.
If the Hogan Piper feud had started in the 90s, they would have made the change in the belt. But back then it's a little different.
Yes. Yeah. No, Piper never needed the title. We all know that too.
Number 4, WCW. Because to me, I could say Sting, I could say Luger, I could say this.
Stop taking the cop out.
It's a cop out.
The bottom line is not what it is without Hulk Hogan's being in it. Period. In discussion. So mostly everybody in WCW, Hogan. Garbage. I don't say Sting. I don't say Sting because I was at the match in Starrcade '97.
Okay, but did Hulk Hogan feud with Conan?
No, Conan during the NWO.
But my point is, then they can't be the entire WCW, you cop-out motherfucker.
Don't count Wolfpack. We do cop-outs in this show. Number 3.
He didn't feud with Mongo.
Garbage.
All right, whatever. 3, Orndorff.
You're an idiot.
Orndorff.
You are a fucking idiot.
Okay, wait. I have a real question for you.
Go ahead.
Real question. I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to put a lot of people on the spot because this is just real, okay? If we were doing this topic 3 weeks ago before Paul Orndorff died, he's not on your top 5 list.
Top 5.
No, he's not.
No,
he's not.
Yes.
No
not
chance. Nobody. No, he's another one of those people. A lot. This happens. The wrestling fan community is notorious for this. Someone dies, someone passes away, and all of a sudden they were the best wrestler of all time.
Garbage.
All of a sudden, no one ever talked about them for years, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, they were my favorite. I love them.
Sure.
Fucking Jinder Mahal is gonna die one day, and people are gonna be like, he was the greatest WWE champion of all time.
I get what you're saying.
Greatest from India.
I've always said Orndorff was top 5. Always said, because first off, that case.
We've been doing a podcast with you for over 2 years. You've never brought up the name Paul Orndorff until he died.
No, not today.
I don't need to. We talk about we tell them what's the current wrestling. What's the big deal?
You do nothing but talk about 1980s pro wrestling
and the 2020 Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that too. Come on. No, seriously. Orndorff was always one of my 5. Always. You can ask anybody that.
There's no way he's in the top 5 of his
Well,
feuds.
we could disagree with that one, but Orndorff's in the top 5. Because Orndorff actually.
Hold on. We can disagree with it, or every other credible news source that talks about Hulk Hogan feuds doesn't have Paul Orndorff in its top 10.
They're dumb. They're fucking.
No, because they're fucking smart, dude. How can you have a 2-year fucking feud where Paul Orndorff did nothing meaningful?
Why Orndorff's my top 5 is because he actually, to be honest, he influenced the number 2 spot on my list.
He didn't do anything in a feud with Hogan. Garbage.
Anyway, number 2, Randy Savage. Because to me, the Savage feud almost copied the Orndorff feud, really, in a lot of ways. The betrayal.
There was a random love triangle because one of them's a psychotic cokehead.
Minus the Liz part, but I'm saying that it
One
copied.
of them was a psychotic cokehead in the Hogan Orndorff feud.
This is my fault.
Wait. This is so good because this is the first time in the history of forever that anyone's claimed that the Randy Savage Hulk Hogan feud was a ripoff of a Paul Orndorff.
No, it inspired it.
Has ever made that claim before?
Actually, a couple guys made it.
That's not a thing. That's not a thing. That's not a thing.
Andre, number 1, of course, because the impact. The reason why I didn't put Savage number 1 is because it's not coming from fucking months away. So anyway, good. Next, go. Give a feud. Give a feud so I can shit on.
So wait. For the record, I just want to point out.
Oh, I can't breathe.
I know how you feel about Kenny Omega. I know, Mike, how you feel about Kenny Omega. But that Omega Page feud is great. You know it's a direct copy of the Paul Orndorff Hulk Hogan feud, right?
Yeah.
You know that Kenny Omega Hangman Page feud? Just total ripoff of that Kenny Omega Kota Ibushi feud. Former best friends, potential lovers, scorned, and now fighting over.
Wow, you just made it Brokeback Mountain. I don't know how you just did that. It just became spit in your hands. I wish I knew how to quit you. God damn.
This is so garbage. I can't breathe. You want to go?
Oh my god. I'll go.
I can't breathe.
I will go. Paul Orndorff is nowhere near my list.
He doesn't even make the honorable mentions.
I don't have honorable mentions. I only have 5. And I'm going to go from 1 to 5 because I'm cooler than Ernest. Okay, so my number 1, I'm sorry.
Sting!
It's Sting. I'm not even a WCW fan. You know I'm not a WCW fan. But that feud literally was built over the entirety of a year. And it involved Sting sending Hulk Hogan his own head in a box. Like, how often does that happen?
Can we mention that feud also had Sting not wrestle a single match for 1 calendar year?
Yeah, for real. Like, and now granted, it was better when Paul Orndorff and Hulk Hogan did it the first time. But otherwise, it was an amazing feud. Like, no, that feud was everything. When I think of Hulk Hogan, and as much as I grew up as a Hulkamaniac, I grew up watching him in the 80s. I grew up all those feuds. You're going to see with the rest of my top 5, it's all those guys. It's all that because that is my Hulk Hogan also. But I'm not going to sit here and act like the feud with Sting wasn't the best booked thing that Hogan was probably ever involved in, especially outside of WWF, but definitely even inside of inside of the wrestling world in general. No other feud he had went that long. No, I know I just got done saying like the Piper feud technically kind of lasted a couple of decades.
The 14 years in between moments was kind of
right, exactly. Like that wasn't necessarily like an ongoing thing for a whole calendar year, if not a little bit more than that. Sting and Hogan, that was a feud. That was a solid happening feud.
And they had like 1 match, and it was at Starrcade.
Yeah, exactly. And then they had matches after that, right?
But literally, the feud between Page and Omega, they're going to be in a 10-man tag match where it's like they're going to tease like fighting each other, but they're going to probably not. Like, they didn't even tease that with Sting.
Right.
Sting sat in the bleachers with a baseball bat and just started fucking pointing at people like, "You're dead."
No.
You're dead.
Yeah. It was pretty amazing. I honestly love that feud. So number 2, I'm gonna give it to Piper. I'm gonna give it to Piper for the longevity. I'm gonna give it to Piper for the fact that like no matter what, they were never the people who were gonna end up on the same side as each other. It just wasn't gonna happen. Piper didn't join the NWO. Like, you know what? Savage is number 3 on my list. Like, spoiler alert, mm-hmm. Savage is number 3 on my list because I love the Mega Powers storyline specifically. Specifically, the Mega Powers, them getting together, him having lust in his eyes for Elizabeth.
So you didn't love the continuation of their feud in WCW like 35 years later?
I mean, I didn't dislike that, But also, too, like, Savage ends up joining the NWO in that. Savage ends up being on Hogan's side, only so that they can then, like, actually feud within the NWO and, like, have a rift there. But, like, they ended up working together again. And, like, that, I don't know, like, that just, it's not as interesting as, like, with Piper, where, like, you know what, they could have easily put Piper in the NWO. He could have been the mic guy for them. He had the WWE connection. He had all of that.
Absolutely.
You could have easily put him there. They didn't. It was just like how remember the moment when Hogan turned and you had Heenan on commentary being like, I've been telling you guys this for years.
That was the best.
Was right.
He almost, first of all, he almost spoiled the whole fucking thing. Comes out the aisle, and then
he did spoil it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But that's the thing though, like, it fits the fact that, like, the continuity was there. The continuity was always there with Hogan and Piper, down to Hogan wrestling Vince, like, in the 2000s, and having Piper be the guy who comes out and interrupts the match and screws Hogan over, or at least attempts to. That continuity, I respect that, so I appreciate that. Savage gets number 3 because, like I said, the Mega Power storyline, some of the best wrestling booking I think that WWF has ever done. If they could do that all the time again, they've only done it twice, once with Hogan and Savage and once with Hogan and Orndorff. But if they could just do it all the time, look, he said it, okay? He said it.
I'm not disagreeing.
It's a full-on copy, apparently. So all I'm saying though is that I appreciate.
Which part was the copy? The fucking amount of cocaine they did before all the fucking backstage segments? Because I mean, that's the only thing I can think of.
Oh my god. So all I'm saying is, like, that I appreciated that specific storyline, and I did appreciate, like, them fighting again once they were in WCW and stuff like that. But, you know, if they had always been enemies through and through after the split of the Mega Powers, that maybe even would have gone to number 2 for me. But it gets number 3, and it gets number 3 very solidly. I'm okay with putting that at number 3.
Solid.
Right. So my number 4 was one of your honorable mentions, actually, and this is just a personal...
Earthquake?
Yep, it's Earthquake, because as a kid, that storyline to me was everything. I didn't even remember the fact that it wasn't for the title, to be perfectly honest. It felt like the top storyline. It felt like the main thing that was going on in that company. I don't think I ever actually wrote a letter to WWF, like a Get Well Hogan letter, but I remember them doing that. I remember them having him, you know, out there giving having all the kids write in and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That was great. That was such a great storyline. And the thing is, at the end of the day, Hogan, Earthquake felt like the guy that could destroy Hulkamania.
Correct.
And there wasn't a lot of that. You know, you had people pop up that were kind of threats, but not really threats. You knew he was going to overcome. There was a moment there as a child, as a 7-year-old, however old I was, where I was just like, oh shit, he can't overcome this one. He can't overcome this big balding man. Right. No, so that one's there for me. Number 5, you know.
Slaughter?
No, it's the crowd at WrestleMania 36. Like,
Facts.
that feud,
Facts.
they booed him out of the building. That feud
was
that feud was amazing. We don't like him anymore. That's just where it is.
No, you can't sit with us.
No, it's okay. For a real answer for number 5, it might be Slaughter. I would think about Slaughter. Slaughter might be an honorable mention. It might actually be Vince McMahon for me. Because I did enjoy when they feuded, when he came back to WWE. I enjoyed the Mr. America stuff. I'm not gonna lie. I was sad when that ended. And honestly, there's a real world element to that. They, as much as they probably were always sort of on the same page, there was also a point where they were literally on opposite sides of each other in a courtroom. So you know that it's a love-hate relationship between the two of them. Will probably always be. Like, they know that they can kind of use each other and make a buttload of money at any given time, except maybe not now anymore. But, like, at the end of the day, there's an animosity there. There's a rivalry there that I think doesn't deserve to be ignored. So I'm going to put Vince there.
Let me ask you a question. Why not Andre?
You know, I just literally forgot because I was just coming up with it off the top of my head. Andre probably belongs on that list. I'm not going to lie, because that was a really well-booked storyline. Was Andre the one where you had the twin referees and stuff too?
Yes.
All right, so Andre belongs on my list. Take Vince off. I still think I made a good case for Vince. Vince gets honorable mention. Slaughter gets honorable mention. Put Andre at number 5. And I'm only putting him at number 5 because I think it's a little it's a little too obvious and on the nose that you'd put him higher than that. Because he slammed him at WrestleMania and stuff like that. But the storyline with the twin referees and all of that, like it deserves to be there. That's almost as good as the Mega Power stuff. You can't. I'm not gonna sit here and act like it's not. I just literally, I didn't write this down. You know, I don't write things
sort
down.
of actually impacts that too because you know, two referees and you know to go to the tournament and Savage wins it and
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, that was great booking back in the day, even though WrestleMania 4 sucked.
Why not?
That was great.
Yeah, why not Orndorff though? Come on.
Mike.
All right, I have an honorable mention or two. But
it's a good podcast.
I'll mention them at the end. Number one,
Sting. Fucking
Sting. The fuck you mean? The guy was arguably the biggest pet peeve and the biggest needle in fucking Hogan's side his entire WCW run. He was there the night he turned. He was there whenever he took the title from him. He joined the fucking Wolfpack. He then feuded with him in the Wolfpack. He then feuded with him in Impact Wrestling. Yeah, it's Sting and it's Sting.
Like, if I were not to cop out, Sting would be number 4. He'd be on my list. But I just put.
You gotta move him up 3 spots and then you'll have a good list.
No. We're not going to do that. Orndorff, baby.
No, we're definitely going to do that.
Number 2.
Garbage. Number 2, Andre the Giant.
Yeah. I feel like it's valid. I feel like that is
valid.
I'll
go Andre too. I love the way they built that. I love the way that they did some things. And honestly, and I'll just mention now, one of my honorable mentions was the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Because buying the title from Andre and trying to keep the title away from Hogan by any means necessary. Kudos on how good of a, while short, a fun storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Also around everything too, again. So right. It's right.
Number 3 is somebody that you guys have not mentioned. That's okay.
Wait.
Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Oh,
great one.
Would you just put it as the Heenan family or literally just okay?
Yeah,
I respect
the entire
that.
Heenan family.
I respect that.
The Heenan family, because here's how it went. It went from fucking King Kong Bundy, Hercules, Andre, you name it. Anybody in that fucking family, Orndorff.
Well, I'm not going to give you Orndorff.
No, but again, wasn't part of, that was part of the Heenan family also too.
He was in the Heenan family, but he wasn't feuding with him when he was in the Heenan family.
No, in 86 he was. The blow off, but actually was Heenan.
But Bobby the Brain Heenan is the main person who he feuded with, and Bobby just went to anybody that he could get to be part of his family to try to stop Hulkamania.
He was the last person before Andre got in. The last feud for Andre.
At number 4, surprising one here. I'm not really surprising. I'm gonna obviously go Savage.
Yeah.
First name Macho, last name Man.
Talk
about it. Number 5, I guess I technically have to put Roddy Piper on this list just because of how long that feud was.
Yeah, he belongs on the
It's
list.
a good feud. It's probably like it like 5, and then like my 6, 7 are probably like all in that same like vortex, and then $1 Million Man is like 8. So my other 2 honorable mentions, and Joe, you'll appreciate this one.
Sure.
The Alliance to End Hulkamania.
Oh, the Dungeon of Doom, working with the 4 Horsemen.
Working with the 4 Horsemen, yep.
Oh, man. Somehow the Yeti just made this list. I don't know how that just happened.
Honorable mention, the Yeti.
Hulk Hogan getting butt fucked just made this list.
Oh, my God.
I do appreciate that,
You're welcome.
I suppose.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And my other honorable mention is one that I put on my original top 5. When I actually started deep diving, I mean, I'm going to be the only one that's going to put Flair on my honorable mentions.
Yeah, I don't agree with you on that one.
I love what him and Flair were doing. I love the fact that Flair was his first opponent in WCW. Flair dropped the belt to him. I love the fact that they feuded through the late days of WCW, and then even tried to be like teammates in the Millionaires Club and all this other bullshit. And then they went to Impact and they feuded there. It's a feud. It has the Piper longevity. Like, yes, WWE obviously fucked it up by them not having the match at WrestleMania 8.
Yeah.
Like,
if they had that match, I would agree with you. That belongs on the list.
But
the fact that never happened.
I mean, we say that, but what happens if that match would have been the Drizzling Shits? Because it probably would have been the Drizzling Shits.
You know,
Hogan.
but I don't actually think so, because they had a house show match at MSG that was available at least on the network for a while. I don't know if it's on the Peacock version of the network.
Mike, it couldn't have been worse than Hogan and Sid, which we eventually got.
I mean, I don't know how. better it could have been. Oh, I do have one other honorable mention, but I'll let Joe finish his statement first.
No, I'm just like they had a match on an MSG house show that was available on the network for a while, and I don't know if it's available on Peacock now, but it was actually a great friggin' match. Like I really enjoyed watching that match. If they had the chance to actually do that at WrestleMania, and it's funny because it's a double-edged sword, because I love Savage and Flair from WrestleMania 8. I wouldn't rewrite history to take away that match, because I love that match. That's one of my favorite early years WrestleMania matches. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm like super disappointed it didn't happen. But if you don't have Flair and Hogan at that Mania, I feel like it needed that in order to actually be solidified as like this major, amazing feud in my eyes.
Right.
I love the fact that they literally feuded, and that the feud in WCW, like, obviously he was part of the alliance trying to end Hulkamania. He had all that stuff going on. The Horsemen were trying to fucking be thorns in Hogan's side the entire time of the NWO. Hell, they had a War Games match where Kurt turned on the fucking Horsemen, and that's the reason why they lost. Like, all that stuff. It's they never had the one-on-one match to culminate the feud, but they were always in a feud.
Right.
And my last honorable mention is the cameraman that shot the fireball in his eye at King of the Ring 1993.
Yeah.
Bonsai.
Bonsai.